I think it's probably too soon to tell and too soon to say, but obviously pretty gutted about the decision. We thought it was going to go our way, but it certainly has proven that there was no way to win this through the courts. Wish someone had told me that beforehand.
The silence coming out of Buckingham Palace in the spring of 2026 hasn't just felt cold, it's been precise, almost calculated. For years, something deeper has been unfolding behind those gates. The world stayed locked in on the back and forth drama between the Sussexes and the Crown, but now the whole situation has flipped into something way bigger. This isn't just messy family tension or basic tabloid gossip anymore, it's something way more strategic. We're talking about what looks like a quiet but deliberate erasing of Prince Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, from the royal narrative they were born into. So the question hits harder now. Did the palace set this up from the start, laying down a trap the Sussexes didn't catch? Or was this always the long game to shield a 1,000-year-old institution from turning into some California lifestyle empire? At this point, it's hard not to raise an eyebrow. The Sussexes, once hyped as the modern refresh the monarchy needed, have somehow flipped their image into something people don't take as seriously anymore. And now, in 2026, the twist is wild. The same titles they held onto so tightly are slowly fading out right in front of everyone. They stepped away, saying they wanted privacy, right? But the past few years tell a different story. It's been a non-stop stream of interviews, documentaries, and tell-all moments, almost like everything is being shared except the one thing people keep asking about. Where do they really stand with the Crown now? Because that word, privacy, clearly hits different in the Montecito playbook. So what does that privacy really mean now?
I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it.
It starts to look like keeping your own secrets locked tight while putting family business on display for the highest bidder. But now, the palace isn't staying quiet anymore. It's finally pushing back, and the focus isn't just on Harry this time, it's hitting the future tied to his kids too. And from what's coming out, the latest legal moves suggest that the shine of their royal status could be getting stripped away for good. But that's only part of what's really going on. To see why this feels so serious, you've got to go way back to a legal setup created over a century ago, and how it's being reworked right now for this exact moment. In 1917, King George V dropped the letters pattern, laying down strict rules on who gets to be called a prince or princess. The goal was simple: keep the royal circle tight and protect its status from getting watered down over time. For years, people believed Archie and Lilibet were covered under those rules once King Charles took the throne. But now, in 2026, things are shifting fast. Reports are starting to surface that a new revision of those same rules is being rushed forward. And this doesn't look like some routine update, it feels way more targeted. The talk going around suggests that royal titles could now depend on actually living in the UK and being part of national life. That changes everything. If you're not based on British soil, the title might start to lose its real weight. And for Archie and Lilibet, growing up in California far away from London, this could hit hard, like their royal identity is slowly being pulled out from under them. The palace isn't moving out of emotion, they're moving with sharp precision. This isn't about being harsh, it's about redefining the whole idea of what being royal even means. Instead of something you're simply born into, it's starting to look more like a role you have to actively live out and represent. Meanwhile, the Sussexes have been seen treating those titles like extra leverage in a PR game, something to boost streaming deals or lock in big sponsorships. But the monarchy doesn't run on trends or public opinion. It runs on tradition and precedent. And by building their life in California while leaning into that celebrity spotlight, Harry and Meghan may have unknowingly given the palace exactly what it needed to make a clean cut. The message coming through is loud and clear: you can't play royal from across the ocean, especially not while publicly criticizing the very institution you still want ties to. Then things took a turn that nobody could ignore. This is where the situation goes beyond tradition and straight into controversy. The as-ever situation became a major flashpoint, and for many watching, it looked like this was the moment the spate should be. Palace's patience finally wore thin. In early 2026, Meghan Markle rolled out a rebrand of her lifestyle venture under the name As Ever, and it didn't land quietly, it sparked instant backlash. It wasn't just about the name, even though that alone triggered legal disputes with smaller businesses. It was the way the products were presented that really got people talking. In what critics started calling the merchandising of the crown, Meghan introduced a candle collection with a very personal twist. Each one was tied to her children's birth dates, number 506 for Archie, born May 6th, and number 604 for Lilibet, born June 4th. And that detail, connected to the king and future King William, made the whole situation feel even more loaded. This crossed a line that for many felt impossible to ignore. It wasn't really about candles, it was about turning royal status into something that could be packaged and sold. From the palace's point of view, this looked like a serious misuse of titles tied to prince and princess, all for pushing high-end products. Reports suggest they saw it as a major misstep, like transforming royal heritage into a brand logo. In their eyes, a royal title carries weight and responsibility. It's not meant to be flipped into a marketing tool for a California business. And just like that, the whole candle situation and product drama handed the palace exactly what it needed to move faster. This wasn't just talk anymore, it became justification to tighten control and push forward with removing HRH styles. What's happening now isn't only about titles being taken away, it's about drawing a hard line to protect the monarchy from being blurred into entertainment culture. From their perspective, every new business move or trademark filing only adds more distance, like another door, quietly closing inside Buckingham Palace. Word is, the king is deeply frustrated seeing titles he approved being treated like tradable assets. This whole situation feels like two completely different worlds crashing into each other. The fast-moving influencer space versus the slow, tradition-heavy world of royal duty. And when it comes to rules and legal power, the monarchy holds the advantage. But even all this branding drama starts to fade when compared to something much more complicated that's been lingering in the background since 2019. When Archie was born, it should have been a moment people everywhere celebrated. Instead, it sparked wave after wave of speculation that still hasn't fully gone away. Questions started popping up that caught a lot of attention, like why details on the birth certificate changed or why Meghan's legal name appeared differently in official records. And then came even more intense rumors circulating online about the circumstances of the birth itself, adding another layer to an already tense situation. This is where things get extremely sensitive and every word starts to matter. Claims have surfaced suggesting that long-standing royal birth traditions may not have been followed in the usual way. For generations, royal births came with formal processes and official oversight to confirm everything was in line with protocol. But with Archie and later Lilibet, that level of visibility was replaced with a much tighter circle and a strong layer of privacy that caught attention inside royal watchers. When it comes to official records, even small inconsistencies can raise big questions. It doesn't automatically mean something is wrong, but it definitely gets people talking. Lilibet being born in California, outside of the UK system connected to royal procedures, has added another layer of complexity that people continue to debate. From the palace's standpoint, it creates a situation where every detail has to line up clearly with established rules. There's growing talk that until everything fully matches the strict requirements tied to succession laws, questions will continue to hang in the air. That doesn't mean conclusions, it means uncertainty. And in royal circles, silence can speak louder than any statement. By not addressing every rumor directly, the palace keeps control of the narrative without revealing its hand. At its core, this goes way beyond a single document or technical detail. It touches the foundation of how royal legitimacy is defined and maintained. If the standards set by the crown aren't clearly met on paper, then debates around titles and position naturally follow. It's a tough, rigid system that doesn't shift easily, no matter how public perception changes. And just when it seems like that's the peak of it, there's still another dimension quietly sitting in the background that people rarely talk about openly. A royal baptism isn't just a photo moment, it's a serious step that connects a child to both the Church of England and the structure of the state. But when it comes to Lilibet, that step didn't fully land in the eyes of the institution. Yes, Harry and Meghan held a ceremony in California, bringing in big names like Tyler Perry and a gospel choir, and it definitely made headlines. But here's where things shift. The Church of England never officially logged it in their records, and that detail carries real weight. Without formal recognition, Lilibet's name doesn't appear in the ceremonial records that royal history leans on. This isn't about personal faith, it's about following a system that's been in place for generations. Every royal child before her, from William's children to others in line, had their baptisms formally recorded as part of that tradition. Instead, Lilibet's ceremony was treated more like a private family event, something meaningful on a personal level, but not registered in the same way as official royal milestones. That choice or situation puts her in a complicated position. Celebrated in California, but not fully reflected in the formal structure of royal records. And from the palace's strict point of view, incomplete steps can raise serious questions. It's not being framed as personal, it's being treated as procedural. From that perspective, recognition doesn't come from intention alone, it comes from following every required step. This gap has created a clear divide between private life and institutional tradition. While the ceremony may have held deep meaning for the family within royal systems, it's viewed as unfinished business, and that difference carries long-term consequences. But the move that really shifted everything didn't even start with Harry. It came from another corner of the family, and it unfolded faster than most people expected. What some are calling the Andrew precedent is now being seen as a powerful tool the palace could use to lock in the Sussex's exit. Toward the end of 2025 and moving into 2026, Parliament started seriously discussing new legislation that could allow formal removal from the line of succession. On the surface, this was sparked by the ongoing fallout surrounding Prince Andrew, but the ripple effect goes way beyond just one person. If laws are adjusted to give the monarch clearer authority to remove individuals from the succession list, it opens the door to much bigger changes. That means, in theory, the Sussexes and their children could be affected by a single legal decision. Back in November 2025, the King made a strong move by removing Andrew's HRH style, showing that action can be taken when the institution feels under pressure. That decision sent a clear signal. No one is completely untouchable when it comes to protecting the monarchy. And right now, public opinion seems to be backing that kind of firm approach more than ever. There's a growing sense that people in the UK are tired of ongoing drama and want a more focused, smaller monarchy made up of working members who are fully committed. So when comparisons get made, it raises tough questions. If one royal can be pushed aside over serious issues, then keeping a branch of the family based far outside the UK becomes harder for some to justify. Behind the scenes, the palace is said to be watching every step of these discussions closely, and there are strong claims that Prince William is one of the key voices supporting a more decisive route if it comes to that. He's aiming for a clean slate when his time comes, and that means cutting out anything he sees as a potential risk to the monarchy's stability. From his perspective, there's no room for unpredictability when the stakes are this high, and that brings everything to a much more personal level. What some are calling William's cold approach isn't just strategy, it's deeply tied to how things have played out within the family. By 2026, the relationship between the brothers is widely described as completely broken. Reports suggest there's no real connection left, and that tension has only grown over time. Sources claim William is frustrated by how recent events have impacted the royal image, and that frustration has been directed squarely at Harry. But it's important to separate emotion from confirmed fact. These are reported perspectives, not direct statements. What does seem clear is that William is focused on protecting the institution he's expected to lead one day. He's known for taking a long-term view, and nothing in this situation has been forgotten. Public interviews, media coverage, and published accounts have all added layers to an already complicated dynamic. From a strategic standpoint, the approach being discussed around Archie and Lilibet is one of distance rather than integration. There are strong claims that when William eventually becomes king, he may limit official roles and responsibilities to working members of the royal family. That would naturally affect how extended family members are positioned within the structure. Meanwhile, King Charles has appeared to take a more personal, family-focused approach at times, creating a contrast in how these relationships are handled. In spring 2026, William and Catherine were given expanded responsibilities connected to royal warrants, strengthening their influence over which brands are formally linked to the monarchy. That role highlights a clear divide in direction. On one side, tightly controlled institutional partnerships, and on the other, independent business ventures operating outside that system. It's a shift that shows how the future of the monarchy is being shaped with a strong focus on structure, control, and long-term stability. Inside royal circles, there are claims that Harry's appeals about his children's birthright have been met with a noticeably cold response. From William's reported perspective, heritage isn't something you can just ask for. It's something built through duty and long-term service. And if it seemed like paperwork issues or ceremonial questions were the only pressure points, the events surrounding the 2026 Australia trip added a whole new layer. That trip was expected to be a major moment, a kind of unofficial royal comeback on the global stage. When Harry and Meghan arrived in Sydney, there was an expectation that the same excitement from their 2018 tour would still be there. Back then, they were widely celebrated across the Commonwealth, but in 2026, the atmosphere felt very different, and the reaction caught a lot of people off guard. Instead of packed crowds cheering them on, there were visible protests in cities like Melbourne and Sydney. Some signs raised a direct question that quickly spread across media coverage. Who are you representing? That question hit hard, especially with the palace already making clear distinctions about official roles before the trip even started. From that point, the tone of the visit shifted. Without formal backing, as an official royal tour, the entire trip was treated more like a private visit rather than a state-level event. The Australian government followed that lead, holding back the kind of ceremonial support and security typically given during official royal engagements. That difference became impossible to ignore without formal recognition tied to royal roles. Even the way the children were acknowledged shifted in public settings. It turned what was meant to be a high-profile return into something much more complicated, with every moment playing out under intense global attention. They ended up being treated like the children of any other high-profile visitors. No special royal status, no elevated recognition, just another VIP presence. And that shift wasn't subtle. It sent a clear message about how quickly public perception can change once the crown steps back. This wasn't just personal. It showed how fast the spotlight can move on when official backing disappears. The reaction on the streets of Sydney became a turning point. For many watching, it looked like confirmation that public sentiment had shifted. The Sussex children were no longer widely seen as part of the monarchy's future role. Instead, the conversation started framing them as part of a chapter people were moving past. But even that wasn't the most serious development. Behind the scenes, attention started turning towards something even bigger: financial structures tied to royal wealth. For years, there was an assumption that Archie and Lilibet might once day benefit from private estates connected to royal holdings. That idea had been widely discussed, even if never officially confirmed. Then, in early 2026, new reports began circulating about potential changes to how those trusts are managed. The talk centered around restructuring rules that could limit access for non-working royals living permanently outside the UK. If accurate, that would create a major shift in expectations. From one angle, it can feel deeply personal, like a break within the family itself. From another, it's being framed as a practical decision about how royal resources are allocated. Questions are being raised about whether wealth tied to the monarchy should support lives that operate completely outside its official structure. When you put it all together, it paints a bigger picture. Titles shape public identity, but financial backing shapes long-term influence. And if both of those elements start to shift at the same time, it changes what the future could realistically look like. Now the reality looks very different. Instead of royal backing, the focus has shifted to media deals and personal business ventures. And in a world where celebrity attention can change overnight, that's not the most stable ground to stand on. The message coming from the top feels pretty direct. If you want the benefits tied to the institution, you're expected to actively serve it. And since Harry and Meghan stepped away from those duties, the door to those resources appears to be closing for the next generation as well. Then came another major shift right as the 2026 parliamentary session kicked off. What some described as a precise move saw Harry officially removed from the list of councillors of state, the group trusted to step in if the monarch is unable to perform duties. It might sound technical, but it carries serious weight. In royal terms, that kind of change reshapes who is seen as part of the core structure. By making that adjustment, it also changes how future roles are viewed across the family line. It signals a tightening circle around who can realistically hold positions connected to governance, and right now, that circle is being drawn much closer to those living and working within the UK. There's a growing sense that these decisions didn't happen overnight. They look more like part of a longer strategy that's been building since the Sussexes first stepped back from official duties. Every public statement, interview, or project added to a wider narrative that the palace could point to when reinforcing these boundaries. From one angle, it can look like a clash of two different approaches, building an independent path versus maintaining a traditional institution. But instead of responding through public back and forth, the palace seems to be focusing on structural changes, adjusting roles, refining rules, and redefining who fits within the system. The result is a quieter but powerful shift. Rather than direct confrontation, it's about redrawing the framework itself, where influence, recognition, and responsibility are all being carefully realigned for the future. Even the conversations around elite social circles like Soho House and connections linked to figures such as Marcus Anderson have taken on a sharper edge in 2026. There's growing speculation that the palace has been paying close attention to these networks for years. Some reports even suggest internal tracking of how high-profile connections may have been used to build influence or open commercial doors tied to royal visibility, long before any major brand launches made headlines. If that's true, it points to something much bigger than a single controversy. It suggests the palace isn't reacting to one moment, it's responding to what it sees as a long pattern. From that perspective, the moves involving Archie and Lilibet aren't sudden. They're part of a calculated response to protect what the institution represents. To the King and to William, this isn't personal. It's about acting as gatekeepers for a system they believe has to stay tightly controlled. For Harry, though, the situation looks increasingly difficult. There's a growing sense that public messaging, media projects, or carefully planned appearances can't shift decisions that are being made at a structural level. Once policies, records, and legal frameworks are set in motion, they're not easily reversed. That reality creates a tough position, especially when personal stakes are so high. What makes it even more intense is the contrast between two very different worlds. On one side, a life built around independence, media, and global visibility. On the other, an institution built on rules, continuity, and quiet control. Trying to exist between those two spaces at the same time creates constant friction. And right now, it feels like that gap is only getting wider. One path offers freedom, but less formal influence, while the other holds structure, but demands full alignment. With both sides moving in opposite directions, the outcome starts to look less like a temporary conflict and more like a permanent divide that's hard to close. This isn't being framed as just a family fallout anymore. It's starting to look like a full institutional reset. The monarchy is pushing forward, and the Sussex branch is being left further behind as that shift happens. With the future pointing toward William's eventual reign, the tone feels like it's changing fast. Less focus on celebrity, more focus on structure, duty, and control. It's tradition over personal branding, every time. The idea of rewriting royal rules from the outside was always going to face resistance because at the end of the day, the crown defines how the system works. And now, in what many are calling a major turning point, the place of Archie and Lilibet within that system is being questioned more than ever. Not highlighted, not elevated, but increasingly uncertain. But this doesn't look like the end of the story, not even close, because the moves happening now may have been set in motion years ago. There are claims about overlooked details and past connections that could explain why everything is unfolding with this level of intensity today. Pieces of the puzzle that didn't seem important before are suddenly getting a second look. If you want the deeper context behind all of this, the backstory, the connections, and the moments that may have led here, you'll want to check out the previous video. It breaks down how earlier events tie directly into what's happening now and why none of this feels as sudden as it seems. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned because the next video goes even further into the details you don't usually hear about. See you there.